Hello and welcome back to the Do Brand You channel. My name is Lorraine, and today we have a great guest that I'm gonna have a conversation with, share it with you. I have been kind of following Adrianne on LinkedIn. I love what she posts. And I love what she's interested in. And so I wanted to get her on the show to dive into a little bit more about what makes her tick and how she's living her life. So welcome, Adrianne, to Do Brand You.
Thank you, Lorraine. I am so excited to be here, and I was absolutely honored when you asked me to be on your show. Thank you for asking me to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So, Adrianne, just a little bit before we get started, is in Phoenix, and I'm in New Zealand, and we're both saying the weather isn't at the moment what it should be for our part of the world. She is a musician. She's an adventurer. She loves to learn. She's self-employed and has a consultancy with her focus is on occupational, environmental health and safety. And yes, that is a mouthful right there, Adrianne. So I'm going to just dive in and ask you, how in the heck did you get involved in occupational, environmental health and safety?
Oh, my pleasure, Lorraine. Yes. Many years ago, when I was going through university or college, I was trying to figure out, what do I want to do with my life, just like every other human being out there. And I stumbled across this program. So I have my bachelor's in environmental science with a focus in geology. I kid you not. I was literally going to be a rock hound when I was done with college. I was going to go play in the dirt. I was going to go in the mining field. I was going to get dirty. And I was really excited about that. I was also putting myself through college at that time, and I was very fortunate to have the ability to work in my field. And at the time I was going to college and working in my field at the same time, I was doing a lot of environmental work. So fast forward a little bit, when I got done with college, I was all ready to be a rock hound. I had my eyeglass, I knew my mineralogy, and I was applying everywhere I could to any mining industry. And the mining industry said, thank you so much, but no, thank you. We don't want you. And at the time, we were in a very bad recession. So I had to switch gears, and I thought, okay, what else could I be doing with what I was going to college for? And I recognized through the course of my work, my professional work, I was doing a lot of Clean Water Act, which is a federal regulation here in the United States. So a lot of Clean Water Act and stormwater stuff. Okay. And I got really into that with my work. I took my work really seriously back then. And when I graduated college, I kid you not, I came home to my husband at the time and I said, babe, guess what? And he said, what? I said, I'm going to save the planet. And he was like, okay, honey, you go after it. You go do it. I support you 100%. And what was really interesting about that was, at the time, he was an automotive painter. So his industry was putting a lot of stuff into the environment and himself too. And here I am wanting to come clean it up and save the whole planet. And so when I got out into the real world at the time, I started off with a really small consulting firm, which was a great opportunity for me. But I had the opportunity to be on a construction project, which allowed me to sidestep into the health and safety side of my career. And that's when I realized I'm very passionate about helping people. And so when I kept moving forward in my career, I was able to recognize that not only am I still on this trajectory to save the planet, but I get to help people too. And I'm really passionate about helping people. And so through the course of my career, I had recognized that a lot of people don't grasp how occupational, environmental health and safety affect them as a worker. And then more importantly, as a community, and then even further out as the world. So I really like to dive really close niche into helping people individually within their own work themselves, and then as a company, and then as a community, and then further out as a global economy. So that's really how I got started, and it's never a dull moment in my world.
I just love that. I actually relate to you with this whole rock thing because when I was back at university, I went to University of Colorado in Boulder, and I had to take an elective, and for some reason, the one thing that fit was this geology course, and I loved it. I just loved it. And now, I mean, I've had the opportunity to hike all over the world, and although I never took it professionally, I love looking at rocks and things, and collecting, rocks. It's crazy how it that can be of such a great interest. The one thing that really stood out for me in what you were saying just now is how you had this purpose, or this passion, I would say, at a young age, that you just went for it. And I wonder if you could just go back to those university days or before. Did you have anybody that, or did you have any problem with going down a route that other people probably wouldn't go, "Oh, wow, that's a really cool profession."
Absolutely. Yes. In fact, at the time, a lot of people were going for a business degree of some sort or accounting degree. And what I had realized really early on, it took me a while in my adult years to get to that point. But looking back, I remember thinking about, I was not that individual or that child where I knew right away what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I came from a single family, and my mom was a nurse. And at a very young age, I didn't know that she was injured at work. And because she was injured at work, it heavily affected her, not only physically, but mentally and financially as well. She was not in a position where she could really sustain herself. So she found herself in a spot where she was able to not work for a while because of her injury. And then she had to go back to work at a really later point in her life. And I also remember this sensation of, I wanted to really help people too. My mom was a nurse. She was a fabulous nurse. Nurses are terrible people to take care of because they take care of everybody else but themselves. And it really is true. And so later on in my years, as I got into occupational safety and health, that's when I really started realizing how it affects people, and not only from their perspective of just their job, but just from a mentally perspective and well-being as well. And looking back, I remember my mom struggled a lot, and it was just my mom and I for a long time. And I didn't recognize how that had affected her. So not only was I able to recognize the occupational side and just really look at the healthcare industry and recognize during her time, they were literally manually picking up patients because they had nothing else. They didn't have anything to help them. So it was a big deal, and it's still a big deal. The healthcare industry today has come a long way with innovative stuff to help their employees. We still have a long way to go. And also, in addition to that, I remember I was on this project up in northern Idaho. It was a geology project. And at the time, we were going for the project. We had to go way up into the mountains out in the middle of nowhere. This was mining country. And the project was really based on cleaning up the mining site, because there are certain regulations in the United States that will fund certain things and certain projects. And my boss and I at the time went, and we decided, okay, we're going to go scope out this project. And lo and behold, good Lord, I was 7 days done smoking. I used to be a smoker, stupidest thing I ever did in my life, but I was a smoker at the time. And so I was at a higher elevation. I was completely unprepared with my equipment and my shoes and everything. But I had to be in this professional way of know what I'm doing and I was out in the middle of nowhere in these trees with all these other consultants, big name consulting firms, and literally walking on mining tailings down and up mountains. I think I got to the car and I was breathing so heavily. I told my boss at the time, I was like, just give me a minute. I thought I was going to die. I literally thought I was going to die. And later on, we ended up getting the project. And later on, further in the season in the year, we had to go out and collect water samples. And if you have no idea how much water weighs, because we had to hand carry everything, it weighs a lot. And I remember thinking, we were going to go and do this project really quick for, a couple of hours. And then all of a sudden it's like almost 8 hours later, but being in the middle of a mountain when it was snowing, it was winter time. We didn't have the proper gear. So I was in snow up to my waist in a lot of areas, and the quiet, the beauty of the mountains, the trees, the quiet, the snow coming in. And I was really able to connect with just Mother Earth. And again, another part of me that fulfilled that piece of nature and that healing aspect. So long story short, Lorraine, no, I did not have somebody that sort of was an inspiration or moved forward. But as I continued moving in my career, I was able to go back and look at, wow, I can see where injuries really hindered my mom and hindered other people, and be able to take everything that I could as I move forward.
Yeah, I love that. Interestingly enough, my mom was also a nurse, and yes, they are very difficult to take care of. I agree with that. Um, yeah, yes, I know, really. But what I love about what you're saying is how it came later in life that you began to discover why you had this passion and this, and I'll talk about it in a sense, this desire to solve a pain point. But it always reminds me of what Steve Jobs says about we can't connect the dots until we look back, and then we begin to connect. And I know people listening to this, our conversation today, if they are someone that's struggling to find that, that reason or that why in their life. I mean, a lot of times it is hidden in our stories that we've already lived, isn't it? So
Yes, it is. And it takes a long time. I know for me, finding my why, it's not an easy thing to decide to pull the trigger and become your own business and set that single shingle out there. It's difficult. And in the evolving world that we live in today, absolutely. I do recall I've had such a wonderful opportunity in my career, and trying to identify what that why was for me took a really long time. And a lot of it was I wanted something, I kept feeling like there was something more that I was meant to do. And even though I could go into a job, a full-time job with an employer and do my job and take it really seriously, there was still something else that was missing for me. And that's when I really started acknowledging that I wanted something different for myself. I wanted more of a life and work balance. Some people will argue that doesn't exist. I think it does. And also I wanted this 50-50 of sitting all the time or being out in the world or in the environment too. And a lot of what I had to come to recognize for myself was I've had some great people I've worked with. I've had great bosses. I've had a lot of terrible bosses too. And that, I think, coming to that point of recognizing who those leaders were in my career and in my life, and then managing and navigating through that took a long time for me.
yeah, it's so good for you to say that because it's something that we don't say enough. We're in this kind of culture of get it done now and we need to know who we are and all that, but it is that long process. What I really love about the stories that you're sharing is that like you say, you started with, the rock hound, that interest, but it was because you got jobs, you ended up in experiences that you found your talent, you found your skill. And this is really the essence of what I do here on the Do Brand You channel is it's you find it when you do something, when you actually go out and try. And I'd love for you to kind of explore and share with us that how did you actually end up get running your own business? Was it like I had a side hustle for a while, or did you make a clean break? And how did you transfer that why into your own company business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started my career off early as a consultant. And again, there was pluses and minuses with being a small consulting firm. And through the course that I was working, yes, I gained a lot of different experience in many different industries. They're all different animals in my world. And I did. I made a clean break with one of them and decided what was the next piece of my life. And a few months after I made a clean break, I thought, I could do this. I could do anything. I could do anything. And I looked more into it and decided, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger and do it. And I went through the legalities of becoming my own business within the state that I was at the time. And next thing I know, I remember I get my business license in the mail and I'm like, huh, I'm in business. This is great. This is amazing. And then now it was, okay, how do I find my clients and how do I go and how do I put on my business hat and start thinking and molding my lenses of my business? And of course, I made a lot of rookie mistakes in the beginning. I've been my own consulting business since 2018. So yes, before COVID. And I made a lot of mistakes, just like everyone else. It's a process. I tell people it's a process. It's not a right or wrong answer. It's a process. And through that process, I really had to identify what are my own values as a human being, as an individual. Right. And then what are my values as a professional and then a business? And I really had to spend a lot of time. And it changes, right? With the seasons that we as human beings do and how we grow as humans, how we mature as humans, it will change and it has changed. And so right now in what I'm working on right now is again, kind of staying focused and recognizing who are my clients? Where are they? How do I approach them? How do I get in touch with them? How do I allow my shining star to shine very brightly in front of them? And it's not an easy process. And what I've really learned throughout my entire career, and even as a business owner, a lot of it is about relationships. And I think, as you were saying, we live in this really fast, hurry up, get the job done. We got to go. We got to move. And we lose touch with that relationship with that individual. And in my world, what I'm also seeing too is we have really incorporated a lot of like the mental health kind of in health and safety. And let me take a step back. When COVID happened, my profession was really smacked hard because we didn't really know what to do with COVID. There was no regulations. There was no guidance. There was no standards. There was nothing. And so all these businesses and all these organizations were just inundated globally with here's what we have to do. Here's what we're mandated to do. And so we had to learn as EHS professionals really to become, how do we do this? And people within certain organizations did really well. Others were still struggling. And again, at the end of the day, what I found was the scientific community really came together and they really wanted to solve this problem of, is it ventilation? Is it the industrial hygiene aspect? How does the virus transmit from person to person? How does that look like within the work environment? And again, it just is that constant evolving piece to what I do. And it fits really well with how I learn. But coming back to that, again, it's just this evolving piece about who I am, where I want my business to go, and how to keep just moving forward with one step at a time.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you've brought up the fact of the scientific community as a space that you participated in and you learned in to try to overcome the challenges that COVID brought to your industry. So, can you share a little bit about, again, relationships and community and how that really is so important in your life, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, I'm glad you used community because this is something that I've really been thinking a lot about just as myself as an individual and as a business owner as well. And I've heard the term just kind of community, and I kind of disregarded it for a long time, just thinking, yeah, community. And I kind of looked at it like, oh, your neighborhood as a community or certain organizations as a community. But I never really looked at the depth or breadth of what community is for myself. And COVID was really the time when it really opened my eyes. Like I was saying, the scientific community. I listened to so many different people. They were biologists, chemists, they were engineers, they were industrial hygienists, they were safety people, they were safety professionals, there were doctors, there were just a lot of people just coming together and trying to present the knowledge that they had, the technical side of what they were doing within their own research, and just opening that conversation. And as we continued to take that information and keep learning from it and apply that to our workforces too, a lot of organizations were also trying to open up that conversation with just their workers as well, and just giving them that space of, how is it like at home? Where are you at home? Is your family okay? Is your logistical things okay? Because we're also starting to see in the early parts of my career, we used a lot of terms like we should or we have to because that's the regulation. And we had recognized in the United States, the environmental and the health and safety standards and regulations really weren't adopted until the late 70s, early 80s, right? So that means it was compliance driven. All of these organizations had to have to do this because the regulator said we had to. And it was about the early part of my career when my profession really started seeing, wait a minute, if we have these regulations, but people are still injured, people are still dying, there's more to this. And so we started looking at it from the risk side of things and starting to look at it from the importance of, again, businesses deciding where they wanted to be within their own business as well. What kind of a market did they want to bring? What kind of a reputation do they want to bring to the global market? And again, we keep seeing it moving, right? And that we're now moving into a global economy. It's not just the United States or Europe. We are all globally connected and we still have growth to go there. So again, it just kept coming back to this. How do we have that conversation with people? How do we give them that space to just acknowledge, I'm really frustrated. I'm really scared. And it takes a lot. It really takes a lot just for an individual to just stop and say, this is where I'm at right now. This is what I need right now. And a lot of organizations can't. And a lot of humans can't do that either, because again, we're on this fast track of, we got to keep going. We're in this lane. We're focused on whatever it is. And then next thing you know, you're 80 years old and you're retiring.
Yep, 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 yep. Well, I love what you say about community, and I love the fact that you've shared about like the scientific community and how it came to, for people to learn together. I mean, I went back and did my master's degree in 2010 here in New Zealand with the focus on, first of all, was online learning, and then moved into kind of global communication because as I was learning back then with the community of learners that I was in and the professors, yeah, this was our world that we live in now, was that we are going to have to solve the problems. We have to globally communicate. We have to come together. And I love this aspect of how you put this on community because yeah, I have the community, the Do Brand You membership community, and it is a learning community, and we learn through conversation. We learn because it's global, and that's how we can learn. We can ask AI, we can Google, we can do all these things, but to really learn, like you say, is really diving into those relationships. I love that. Now I want to kind of just touch on something else, and you were talking about how it was a slow process for you to find what you were really good at, and then to identify those values, especially with the job, and what were your personal values, what were your professional values, and then how you began to, build that real purpose that you have in your life. So now that we have the opportunity to talk to you after this so many years of this process you've been to, how do you define your purpose and your vision?
That's a really good question because it continues to evolve. A lot of what I had to do as just a human, take that step back and just really start to understand what is my intuition and what is my gut, and learn to follow what my intuition and my gut was saying. And that takes time. So allowing myself that grace and that space to be patient with myself as I build that relationship with my own self. And in addition to that, also, I think there's a piece about it with community as well. Of course, we can learn, but there's another significant piece of taking acknowledgement and responsibility as a human being in our behaviors and how we treat others as well. And I think there's a lot of times where we don't want to admit that. And let me share an example. I've had a lot of mentors. Mentors are great. And some of them, I even joke with them because I say, I'm really sorry that I didn't tell you in the beginning, but you're my mentor now and I keep you for the rest of my life. So I've had really good mentors throughout my life. And I remember I had a really good professional mentor. I was really frustrated in my job and just in my career, and just really felt like at the time and in the moment, I felt like I never had somebody to just kind of take me under their wing and to just teach me all these things. And I shared that with a mentor of mine, and they said, Adrianne, it sounds like all of those leaders were really good mentors for you. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was just telling you how frustrated I am with it. And he was trying to get me to understand. Look at what they taught you not to be. Yeah. And I had to stop and think, that's a really good that's a good thing. And that resonated with me so much that was part of another drive in me to become my own consulting business. Was I felt for a long time in my career, I didn't have the leader that I wanted. So I had to learn to become it myself. And I took a lot of what those leaders taught me and applied that. And in fact, I remember this one time I was with an organization. I was pretty new with the organization and in the industry at the time. And I remember I made a really big mistake, and I didn't know how I made that mistake. And the way that it was presented to me was the supervisor at the time. Now, the structure of the organization and where offices were, this really does matter, whether people want to admit it or not. But in order to get to the supervisor's office, I had to walk through the floor, the manufacturing floor, and then up some stairs. And lo and behold, it was early in the morning. And what happened was I had the supervisor said, hey, can you come by my office, later in the morning? I was like, sure, no problem. And then when I did, I walked through the manufacturing floor, up the stairs, and sat down and talked with the supervisor, for him to then just completely scold me on a decision that I made the previous week. And just because he was frustrated and he was upset because his boss at the time came down on him. And so he was lashing out on me. And I never forgot that. I remember thinking to myself, of course, I apologized for my mistake that I made. And I took that. And then later on that day, I was in another meeting with other top leaders who then did the same thing. they scolded me for a decision in front of other colleagues and not helping me understand what I could have done differently, but rather scold me. And so those type of experiences has happened to me over and over in my career, and taking those experiences and just learning from them and really owning, yep, I could have done something different. However, this was the information that I had at the time. This is the decision that I made at the time. I can now see I made a mistake, but trying to move forward with that. And that, again, I think that just comes with time, experience, and just having those type of relationships and incorporating all of that into just who I am today. So my values really stem from just my experience. I had to really look a lot at where my values were when I was growing up as a kid, from my own family and from my own neighborhoods and things like that, and just really own what that was and what that looks like, and evaluate it and examine it and either adopt it or change it for myself too. So again, never a dull moment, and it's always just evolving as I evolve and change with the seasons as well.
Yeah, I love what you say there, because that's one of my takes on this whole concept of the do brand you, the being brand you, is it was my desire to go against this thing of that's all you have to do is decide your colors and decide your mission and decide, what you're going to wear and what you're going to say. And then you're going to be a brand. And it was like, that's not what it is at all. It's a continually evolving, growing thing. And you epitomize that in what you say, because you constantly say how you would go and ask questions and try to find out and figure things out, ask questions of yourself. And I always love that, because who we are to be the best version is to go on a quest, to continually be on that quest. And I love that. And I love that you focused again on that relationships are important, but you recognize the relationship with yourself is so important. And what you've said is very, very inspiring, I know, to people that will be listening. So we are already at the half hour. This always goes faster than we want. So we'll probably get you on the podcast again, because I'd love to have a deeper conversation into different topics as well. But before you go, one of the things about being and doing the best version is to live that lifestyle that you desire and deserve. And you said that that was one of the reasons you wanted to go into business. And so I'm very curious as to how do you live your balanced life as to who you are with everything that you do professionally?
Oh, yes. And a lot of it is understanding what my hobbies are and what makes me just calm and just really happy. So early in our conversation, I shared with you that I am a musician. And part of that is I play the ukulele, and I have been the last 5 years, and I sing. So finding that space for myself to just calm down and to just be. In addition to that, I have my home in Phoenix came with 8 citrus trees that I have no idea how to grow, but I'm learning very quickly. And I've also learned that gardening and growing trees is another thing for me to connect with myself and just be outside. And so music is a lot of it. So for me, music is a big one, gardening, being outside, connecting with nature. And so recognizing when I'm in a go, go, go state of mind, and to pause, because my mind and my body and my spirit and my soul really needs for me to just pause for a little bit and step away and go do what I like to do. So sometimes I call it Friday nights, where I just listen to a lot of music and I just do karaoke in my own home and I let loose and I go dancing, and my husband just lets me do what I need to do. And so finding all those things, finding those things that really bring me joy and pleasure, and incorporating those into my daily life along with exercise too, and getting a lot of sleep. So I know that that's a big mouthful, and we always say, here's all these things that we have to do within our lives. But really, when I allow myself to be in my space, my ukulele playing, my singing, my dancing in my own living room, that allows my brain to calm down and my body to calm down. So then the creativity for my business and where I want to go can have space to fruitate. So that's some of the things I do.
I love that, Adrianne. That's fantastic. And what a wonderful way to just wrap this up today, and to thank you again for just inspiring us. I know that I'll get this. I can always edit this out. Yeah, one of the things I wanted to say was how much, I know people will be inspired by what you said. And what I'm finding as I look at some of the analytics on the YouTube channel is that there are people that are, I'm sure they're just going on repeat with some of these. And I'm sure this one is going to be on repeat for a few people, because you've got a lot of golden nuggets. So thank you so much.
Thanks. And Lorraine, I wanted to just give you one last story how I incorporated my music. So about a year and a half ago, I was with an organization, and it was one of those where it was just, we were standing as a middle management in a meeting. And it was just kind of one of those where it was just, nothing was going right. Us middle managers weren't doing things right and whatever. And I remember I had this thought of, there's nothing I can do. There's absolutely nothing I can do. And what popped into my mind was, it was a Thursday. So on a Friday, I thought to myself, for some reason that night, I said, there is something I can do. I can play my ukulele. And what I did was, I brought my ukulele to work that time. I went into the cafeteria at the time because I thought to myself, these folks who are working on the floor, they deserve something. And so I thought to myself, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring my ukulele. I'm going to go to the cafeteria, and I'm just going to be elevator music for whoever's in the cafeteria. And I sat next to Daniel, loved Daniel. He was a great guy. And I sat down and I said, it was really early in the morning too. I think it was about 6:30 or 7 in the morning. And I said, hey, Daniel, do you mind if I play my ukulele? I'm just going to practice. You don't have to talk to me. You don't have to do anything. You just keep doing what you're doing. I just want to play and practice my ukulele. And he was like, all right, cool. Sure. Why not? Whatever. So I started playing my ukulele, and next thing I know, he's just sort of doing this. He's just kind of going around. And then lastly, so that was first shift. And then by second shift, because I wanted to do it for both shifts. And by second shifts, I had so many people come to me and say, why didn't you tell me there was a concert? So what I ended up doing was, for the last month and a half, I brought my ukulele every Friday, and I was just elevator music to them. That's all I was doing while they were on their break. And by my last time that I played, I had second shift singing with me. I kid you not, singing with me.
Gosh, it's so cool.
As I played my ukulele. And that was my way of giving back to them. So it comes back to that relationships. It was building that relationships with those people. So thank you, Lorraine. I hope to have another opportunity to be on your podcast. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And I love how you ended on that, because it's a relationship that we have with ourselves, but then the relationships that we add value to others. So
yes. Thank you.
So cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lorraine. Take